Hello, welcome to another episode of Somewhere Between a Film and TV podcast. We are your hosts. I am Daniel Parra.
And I'm Erwin Trejo.
And number one, thank you so much for listening and watching. And number two, if you could, what are they going to do?
They're going to like, comment, and subscribe.
Please do. Everything we review here has...
Sorry. It's just the way you emphasize that.
Everything?
Everything we do
Everything we do.
matters.
That's not true. Everything.
No, it does not.
Everything.
And you remind me about that every day.
Things happen. Everything we do has full spoilers because we're not the best at talking about things spoiler free. We've learned this in life. Erwin,
Okay.
I know you love The Crow. I know you love the 2024 movie The Crow, right?
Well, I love how you specified that.
So can you please tell me what this movie is about?
Yes. It's about these two soulmates, Eric and Shelly.
It says that in the IMDb.
Yeah, it says soulmates,
Okay.
Eric and Shelly, are brutally murdered right away. Given a chance to save the love of his life, Eric must sacrifice himself and traverse the worlds of the living and the dead, seeking revenge.
So I'm glad that IMDb did the plot summary for us because we would not have been able to do that because we're going to break down here this movie, beginning, middle, end, whole thing for you. And why it did or didn't work, I don't know. Did we like it?
Somewhere between?
We'll get to it. So, with this movie, Erwin, I know you've seen the original The Crow.
Yes.
And at this point, I would say that you know more about that movie than I do because I've seen it. Mm-hmm. But I haven't seen it since I was a teenager. And originally, I did want to go back and watch it again. But, I just didn't catch up on it in time. So I want to ask you if you had any expectations for this, if you saw the trailer and you thought anything.
So it was right after. So once I saw the trailer for the 2024 Crow movie, I was like, what is this movie? Even the trailer alone, it didn't really catch my eye. Mm-hmm. But of course I was curious. And then I heard from like other friends that I should watch the original Crow because I heard that movie was really good. And it had like a cult following, I believe.
It does have it. We'll get to it. It has a very specific audience for it. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'll watch the original Crow before this movie came out. And I did, and I loved it. Yeah. And I can see the appeal and like why it has a cult following. Yeah. As well. And so, of course, when I watched the trailer again, I was like, oh, I can see why people who love the original
were already bothered by this. Yeah.
And so, of course, when I went to this movie, I tried to go with no expectations, and even then, it just wasn't.
It wasn't
enough.
Wasn't enough of much of anything, I don't think. So, my experience with this is
also I know the Crow is based off a comic.
It is. We'll get to it. There's a couple things about it. I don't know if you know what inspired that comic book, but it's really interesting, and I think it might make you a little bit more aggravated by this movie's existence in the first place.
Okay.
So I have known about The Crow since we were in high school. Mm-hmm. I remember we had teachers that like were big fans of it, and then they would tell us about it. Oh, okay. I think it's because they wanted to address with that can you please look up the author of The Crow? I keep forgetting his name, but this was a graphic novel, or also it even says comic strip in
James
O'Barr. Yeah, thank you. So with this, the author of this said that this was inspired by or really more of a tribute to his wife, who had died in a car crash, who he loved a lot and was taken away from him like last second. Yes. He wrote this as a tribute to her memory. And there's quote that I looked up that's great. I'm going to botch it a little bit, but I was reading an article on a comic book movie. And this is from like 2011 because The Crow's a 90s film and they kept having these direct-to-TV sequels, these direct-to-DVD. There were a few. A lot of them are considered really, really bad. Mm-hmm. And this was an article way back in 2011 where he says this, where he said, honestly, I never minded that they kept trying to remake this because it just makes that original movie even more special to me. Mm-hmm. Proof that it works, and the rest just can't capture that. Yeah. And I did look at clips at least of it. Not that you can measure quality of it, but it has such a distinct style.
Yeah, I can see where a lot of other movies like Sin City,
Oh yeah,
like
for sure.
were just inspired by from the original Crow.
Yeah,
and just further on, it's insane like how much impact that movie has.
Even through life stuff too, because it affected. Because even in this, he said that he touches on the fact that it hits people that are in the goth scene in a kind of way.
Yes,
and it's heavily inspired by them. I don't know. People that are like that are in
I don't know a lot of goth people.
I don't know I don't know any goth people.
I mean, I can't think of anyone.
I do know someone at our gym that has the makeup.
They wear like goth,
the all white. Yeah, they do.
They do. Which, the gym that we go to?
Yeah.
What time?
Depends, I think. Evening sometimes.
Okay. Wow.
Just keep an eye out. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen it. I've seen it in person.
I see them in person. They're real guys.
They're not just like something that's.
Yes.
But the quote is amazing. He says something. I think they try to say it in this movie. Mm-hmm. So I know they're like at least going for something.
Yes.
I can give this movie the benefit of the doubt that I feel like it's not entirely soulless in that way. We'll get to it.
Yes.
But it's something along the lines of this idea that the person, once they pass away, as long as you contribute their memory and they're gone, they're not really ever gone. Mm-hmm. Because that's a lived in idea that people can relate to, and it's supposed to be a tribute to his wife that he feels was taken away from him as like at the last second, which is, at least this movie captures that in terms of what this is about. But I think what ends up happening here, once we fully get into the movie, based off of all of this, and I don't know if you knew any of that in advance. So that being said, also the art is great in this. Yeah. The art is great in the comic book. I at least got to read a couple of pages of it because I wanted to see.
Yeah.
The original is way more in line with that visually than this one is.
Yes.
So, with all that being said, Erwin, did you love this movie? Did you hate this movie? Or are you somewhere between?
I did not like this movie whatsoever. I did not enjoy this movie. I don't even know where to start. Wait, let me. Okay.
Well, we have to start at the beginning.
Okay,
but
we'll start from the beginning. But wait, I want to know what you thought first too, and then we can just go back and forth.
Okay, I hated it. I thought it was.
There we go. Yeah.
You're like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's go. However, there were ideas in this that pissed me off in terms of the fact that they could have been something.
Yes.
Because every single time I felt like it was about to be something, it just took it away from me. And I don't know if it's that equivalent of me being like psyched out over and over, where you're like, oh, something, oh, never mind. And
yeah. I agree.
So any positive here that I can say ends up, this movie's an hour 50, what? And then
dude, it felt so much longer.
I texted you.
Yeah.
I would never text during a movie, but I texted you after. I was like, dude, how long was I in there? It felt so long.
Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So the beginning of the movie, it starts with him as a kid, Eric.
Yeah.
And I guess he was like trying to like save this horse that got hurt.
Right. Yeah.
Like with this barbed wire fence and everything. And I guess it also showed like a shot of his mom being like drugged out or something. Him living in a trailer park and all, and like him trying to save the horse, and then him getting cuts on his hand.
Yeah.
And everything.
So, did you take away anything from that, or were you just like,
no?
Is this in this movie for any
of course,
reason?
I was thinking, okay, well, somehow this is gonna connect to like something later on, right?
Yeah.
And so I just kept it in the back of my head. Mm-hmm. But then later on, and this is the part right after that scene is where I started to feel so sleepy.
Yeah.
I kept going up and down, like my eyes were like.
I've had it happen where, you see a movie at 10:45 and you don't fall asleep, but you're just like kind of...
Not 10:40. I was there at I was like 3. Like
PM?
3 p.m.
Dude, you're
like 3 or 4 p.m.
You're one of the first people to see The Crow. I mean, you were obviously super excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, clearly I was disappointed because times I was like, wait. And then I was just chugging my water that I had, just trying to stay up. And I just could not. And then next thing you know... It cuts to the girl. What's her name?
Oh,
Shelly.
FKA Twigs. Yeah.
Yes. And it cuts to her and like her stuff that she's dealing with, and even then it just jumps to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the beginning of this movie, the reason why I asked you if you knew what that was headed towards, apparently that's a scene in the comic book. Like, it's supposed to be. However, it makes me want to ask you the question, at what point do you think adapting something from a comic book is actually contributing to the story overall? Do you think that should always be a thing in movies where they reference something visually, even if it doesn't actually have an impact on the movie's story itself? Or because who's that appealing to?
Just the people who read the comics. But even then, if it doesn't work in the movie, why do it?
Yeah, and did you think it worked in the movie? No.
No.
I didn't think so either. Yes. I thought it was supposed to be his experience with death for the first time, or something. Like
getting hurt or something, and then I don't know.
No, because Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, but they do say something later where he's like, he has the ability to avoid death in him. I was like, does he? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But
it was just so hard because even once we get to the story starts with the girl Shelly and her trying to escape and everything, and then eventually going to prison with Eric.
So
and then I'm like, this is weird. Or not prison. It's not prison.
Rehab.
It's rehab. And I'm just like so confused because like the way their relationship starts so fast.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just not believable whatsoever.
Before I get to that, because I didn't think so either.
Yes.
I thought initially that the entire thing with FKA Twigs or Shelly,
yes.
I was like, how long? And this is immediately kind of. Do you know where you started to dislike this movie?
It was the moment when they were both like showering each other with love.
Oh, okay, pretty early on.
Yes.
I gave this movie the benefit of the doubt for maybe a little too long because
that was it was during that time, sorry. And then it was right after they got murdered.
Okay, and that's when you were like, this sucks.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't like this. It's because the way that Eric was being the way what he was.
So before we get to that, the entire thing with following Shelly around though at the beginning of the movie, it feels so long.
Yes.
Immediately that's kind of where I felt this really, really draining idea of this runtime. I saw this movie early too. I saw it at 4 p.m. I've heard a lot of people say in their reviews that fun fact, I walked into this movie and actually I went to see Blink twice right before because I double featured these. I started off way stronger than I ended. I walked in and I saw two people I assume were on a date, and I overheard the guy say, I didn't know what movie this was about, by the way. I overheard him say, I don't know, I kind of liked the half where it was boring at the beginning before they started doing all the other stuff. And I was like, what is that about?
The half that was boring?
And then I walked into The Crow, and about halfway through I was like, that dude was talking about this movie, wasn't he? Because it's so... And I know the criticism of something being boring can be one that people take as, oh, well then, I mean, did you take anything else away from it? But there's no fucking pacing here.
No.
It feels like everything's so languid and dry. And it would be something if their romance was anything.
But even the dialogue itself, it doesn't feel genuine. Yeah. And it just feels that it just needed to be said, like in the words itself are supposed to be so impactful, but it never landed.
I want to get into the dialogue whenever we get to the point where they kind of have to break out of rehab, but going from that where she lands in there, I was kind of immediately confused about the visual language of this movie because I was trying to find positives, right? Because we have to review things fairly and go in with no criticism. So I was kind of
fairly. Nothing's ever fair.
Everything's biased, but that's personal opinion.
I'm just being honest.
But no, I was like, I like the costume design here. What prison have like pink suits? That's cool.
That's cool. That's cool. Positive.
Me trying to be like, is there anything here?
I gotta find something. They paid me. I have to find something good.
Lionsgate, which we ripped apart Borderlands. Yeah.
Oh well.
Really high winning streak, guys.
Great. They're never gonna invite us to a premiere.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh yeah, what'd you think of Borderlands? Like, oh.
Boring. More like boring lands.
Nice. It's like, yeah, great job. Okay. Yeah, awesome. Eli Roth's like, I fucking hate you. But what part?
I think Eli Roth is a cannibal.
He made a movie about that.
I think he is.
Is that like a theory you had?
I don't know. I just feel like
I feel like there was something wrong with him.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you make those crazy movies, right?
You make those crazy movies.
There's got to be something wrong with you.
Wes Craven?
No, I mean, whoever. He's Craven what? Whenever...
You look hungry, man.
Rest in peace. But with this, let's get into like the villain part of this.
Oh
Have you?
God.
Okay, so
wait, what's his name again? Anytime you see this guy, Danny Hudson, in a movie, just know it's gonna be bad. I don't know why. Every time.
So there's something about his face that I don't know. It immediately brings this irritation, not because he's like annoying to look at, but because you know the type of movie you're about to get.
Yeah.
The reason why I want to get into the villains so soon is because we spend more time with them than we even meet Bill Skarsgård's character.
Dude, yes.
And
oh my gosh.
Did you like the henchwoman lady, the one that
the girl, the woman?
Yeah.
No, because she even had nothing to do. Like she was on the screen many times.
Yeah.
But she had little to nothing to say.
Yeah, no, really nothing. And she's doing that whole thing where it's like I'm the bad guy, and then it turns out I'm actually not the full bad guy. It's someone else.
Yes.
And this movie's nonsensical use of villains here is so identical to every bad movie like this.
Yes.
There are so many specific movies that feel like this one, the sort of same kind of bad. I know you not Resident Evil, you don't like those. I know you like Underworld.
Yeah,
I have my own personal guilty pleasures that feel like this. They're really blue for some fucking reason, and
like the villain aspects.
No, just the movies generally. Like
Underworld
the way
was like blue.
Underworld's
blue
the
most
blue looking thing I've ever seen, and this one has that same sort of visual tone.
Do you know Ultraviolet?
Yeah, I do.
Dude,
oh yeah, you like that movie, right?
Yeah, the amount of times I've seen that movie too. Oh man.
So we talked about how with Borderlands, if you were nostalgic for that early 2000s video game thing, if you're nostalgic for that like edgelord early 2000s knockoff Daredevil, which is already not that amazing on its own, and Underworld, the beginning of Resident Evil, Van Helsing, I know.
I love Van Helsing. That's probably like my ultimate guilty pleasure, because it has, of course, Hugh Jackman, right? Yeah. But it just has werewolves, vampires, Frankenstein's in it. It's great. I love it so much.
Or Extraordinary Gentlemen, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. If you missed weird movies with corny dialogue that your 14-year-old cousin really likes for some reason, it's his favorite movie.
Dude, this movie isn't it?
I feel like this is. And I genuinely think this movie will find some sort of weird audience that does like this movie for a couple of reasons we'll get into.
Okay.
But with that, moving on, he goes into the prison, right?
Yes.
Or rehab.
Rehab.
And then I got confused because whenever they were doing, they're
he
like...
He just shows up.
Yeah.
You don't know why he's in there. We're just assuming that because of like drugs or something.
Yeah, because I didn't know. They don't even explain where this is.
Yes.
She gets arrested, and then they're like, you're coming with us. And then, like, because...
You're with us now.
No, because I was like, what's even going on?
Yeah.
Like, it's not one of those... I don't know if this movie's trying to be art house or if it was just edited weird, because all the drugs fall out, and then there's a police officer randomly there, and he's like, hey.
Hey, what is this?
And then it cuts, and then she's in rehab.
No, well, it cuts to Bill Skarsgård for the first time, and he's in rehab, and you're just like, okay, he's just there.
No, and then did they already show all of his drawings and stuff, or was he just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
So, with him, this is more critical of this hairstyle, but...
So this whole review is just about his hairstyle.
I like Bill Skarsgård a lot. I even said in one of our previous reviews, I liked the trailer for this. Well, how fucking dumb was I? But because I was like, I like the song. I like the Ozzy Osbourne remix thing. It's like a weird trap, like rap song, which
I love when they do
probably
remixes.
Doesn't fit what the original was, which is probably why people were pissed off. And I kept thinking during whenever he's introduced, I was like, I hate that haircut. I was like, I hate when people get this haircut. It's the Peso Pluma haircut before he got his hair actually cut.
And actually looks great now. He looks way better than
I know it's
before.
A trend. Yeah. I know it's a style. I know people are allowed to express themselves in any way in which they choose.
But Daniel hates you, right?
But this dude, if people ever
I'm
made...
going to cut that.
If people ever made fun of Jared Leto, who sucks... His
Just a jab?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
I mean, he's
straight
not,
up, he sucks.
Yeah, he's not a good person.
If you ever made fun of the Joker tattoos, this dude, his whatever.
It looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Just the way the tattoo placements. And I'm like, because sometimes like when people always ask like, why do you get tattoos, right? Like for symbols or meaning and everything.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you can get them for like, it looks nice. Great.
Yeah.
But for the tattoos that he has, Bill Skarsgård's character in this entire movie, and like sometimes it just has like a shot of him, it's his full body, and you can see the tattoos clearly, and it doesn't make sense. And we're like, we don't even know who this character is.
No, so
and his tattoos don't even help him in that case.
The issue we run into is because our only background information for Eric at this point is that he had a horse problem at one point.
He had a horse problem. I can't deal with horses.
I'm just like, I'm so over this. And then we are reintroduced to him in rehab, and he's a fucking loser.
Yes.
He's like not a relatable loser, not one where you're like, oh, what's this guy about? We don't know a fucking thing about him.
I can't feel bad for him or anything because I don't know anything about him. There's nothing they talk about.
No, and then I'm going to get into the dialogue in a second because it is really bad.
Yes.
And it's said right off the bat once they start trying to have chemistry with each other. I've seen FKA Twigs in Honey Boy. She's not a bad actress.
Wasn't she in the one with what's it called? The one with Timothée Chalamet?
I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't quite.
Oh,
no, you're confusing her with Taylor Russell, I think.
Let me see. Timothy?
No, if it's Bones and All, it's
Timothy?
something else you're thinking of.
Bones and All?
While he looks this up, I want to say that I was confused about once they first enter rehab because I thought it was prison, right? So they're doing these like social circle things where it's like, step in if you've ever been misheard or misjudged or...
No, you were right. I got them mixed up.
Yeah. Or whatever. And I was confused because you're not like... Usually in setting in movies, it's being told and it doesn't have to be explained. But in this case, I was kind of like, she just got arrested. Obviously, I think she's in prison. And there's one line here when they're breaking out that I hated. It's whenever I realized the dialogue was bad. It's whenever I didn't like Eric. Is whenever he's like, fuck this place, I'm rehabilitated. And I was like, when he goes through the washer.
Yeah.
Also... something right before is whenever they're like hunting her down and they're like, where's whatever her name is in the Shelly. They're like, they're in the laundry room. How do you know that they're in the laundry room? Only one person. You're only looking for one person. Why'd you say two? I don't know. Dude, it's just one of those things where like, if the movie were better, I wouldn't have paid attention to it.
But... I don't know. Okay, what happens next after that? Because that's when they start like having like that montage, right? Of them with
whenever
one another.
She's like, "Hey, let's go back to my friend's place with all the clothes that fit you immediately." Like, also, Bill Skarsgård's like 6'3", 6'4". How the fuck?
I don't know. But that's when the whole montage starts happening, and this is the part to me where it's supposed to be very sentimental, and you start to understand like their relationship with another, but it did not. Yeah, I did not get that whatsoever. Yes. Because that's where, like, one of the strong points from the original Crow movie had. Because that's what I remember that stuck with me. And you can see, like, where the passion was. Where the main character from the original Crow and, like, his reasoning of, like, continuing on and, like, what he had to accomplish throughout the movie. And for this movie, for the 2024 one, it just did not have that.
So let's break down the concept that I think is great in what you just said.
Yes.
And it's executed horribly. The idea of a retelling of The Crow where you actually get to spend time with their romance and it's taken away, let's say halfway through.
Yes.
And then it turns into a sort of slow burn payoff about the sort of vengeance, and then you realize that you don't need that to really appreciate the loved one being gone.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. That is such an interesting execution based idea where you have the romance and then it pivots genre halfway through. That's great. I think that could really work. Did you like feel that in that, or were you just so like caught up in the...
No, I did not. Yeah, I did not feel that whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then I guess the way they were murdered too, it just felt so fast.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's like, of course, like when it comes to, I don't know anything about murdering, right? But
Yeah,
I'm not a serial killer or anything.
No, so if anybody in the local news is looking for
the ladybird killer,
yeah, he said that he doesn't know anything.
Anything
Sounds like something a murderer would
say. But it's just,
yeah. Tell me more.
You know what? Okay, quick, you continue now. Go ahead. I'm done.
What are we gonna say?
No, it doesn't matter anymore. Now people think I'm a serial killer. I'm hunting down their Frosted Flakes, and they're hunting the Cheerios.
I was like, well, what? He's raiding their pantries. No, so what happens? They're like looking for. That's the other thing. We're trying this out, and they're like, this movie's so fucking forgettable. They're like,
okay, so like they're at the.
They're at the club. Like, they're at that club, and then
yes,
the guy,
and because there was a friend group between Shelly, her friend that died in the very beginning of the movie, and then the third guy that was part of their friend group. And reason why this mob is trying to find Shelly is because there's a video of her and her friends, but of course Shelly doing, what was it, like she gets possessed by the main guy, the main villain of the movie, Danny Houston.
Yeah.
Of her, and like she gets possessed and she kills like this random person, and then she was just recorded murdering somebody, and that's just not her. And
it's having a bad day. It's just not me.
It's just not me.
Yeah.
But so the friend is trying to find Shelly and letting her know that like, hey, they're still looking for her, that they both need to leave and everything, and that's why Eric and Shelly left the bar or left the club and went back to their apartment.
Yeah.
And that's when they get caught and they get murdered. And then And then after that, that's when, once they get murdered, both.
That's Eric, whenever I do want to complain about something in a second.
Okay.
But can I tell you, I don't think that video is the big deal that every character makes in this movie. Because whenever, like later on, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but later on, whenever Danny Houston's like, hey, have you seen that video? She wasn't what you thought she was. I was like, dude, he obviously knows you have like supernatural powers. You know why? Because he does too. Like, well, but then I guess only two people do in this universe, and it's those two.
Yes.
But going back to that, like whenever they're in that club area, but before that, the montage, I didn't buy really much of any of it, because whenever they're like looking at each other longingly, lovingly, all that is whatever, but then you know they start talking. And there's one part in this that I thought was an absolutely horrible, like groan inducing piece of dialogue, and it's when they keep trying to make a big deal out of this bridge in this movie.
Oh yes.
They go back to it visually multiple times, so I'm like, okay, I get it. You're trying to do something here, and it felt so forced to me in the sense of trying to make a moment.
Yes.
Where I was like, are you trying to YouTube clip me? Where we were like talking about how you YouTube clip like, oh, this, and then they put the quote, and then it's like whatever, and it's like 4K Ultra HD, but it's
me scrolling through those. What the heck?
And I'm like watching this, but one of those sort of hot topic I told you I was going to bring this up, pieces of dialogue where I will get into what that means in a second, but it's FKA Twig's line wherever she's like, if I jump off this bridge, would you jump off with me? And then he's like,
I would do it for you.
And he's like, I'd do anything for you, or something like that.
Yeah, I'd do anything for you.
But then she's like, after that, she's like, do you think... Are you tired?
No.
It's like, yeah, tired of you. You're not getting the hint. But
damn. Dude, I guess you were too honest, huh?
It's like, no, I got it. But then the thing that I think is weird is what she says after, whenever she's like, do you think they'd ever make a memorial that would honor our deaths or something like that?
So why would they?
No, it was like you two are two crackheads. Nobody knows anything about you. Also,
me and the audience, I don't know anything about you either.
No, I'm like, we've currently been sitting here for I don't know how long. Yes. And I don't know a single fucking thing about Bill Skarsgård's character.
Yes.
Other than that, his name is Eric.
Me just realizing that right now.
And that started to get on my nerves. I don't know what it was about the name Eric that I was like, you're such a fucking loser. I'm sorry to any Eric out there
because
in the world, but still.
It just sucks because we're spending so much time with these two characters, and we had little to no explanation of what their backstory is.
Yeah.
And then once we get down later on in the movie, even then, we don't even get anything more with Eric. And then we got a little bit of Shelly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even enough for me to even care about her.
No, we know more about the character of Shelly in this movie than we ever do about Eric.
And Eric's the main one.
Yeah.
He's the main character.
We have to follow him halfway through. And this idea of trying to honor a loved one through sacrificing, like, there's a couple ideas here I like that we'll get into, which makes this movie all the more infuriating because people keep saying I don't see why they want to do a retelling of The Crow. I get it though. I actually do.
No, I get it.
I think it's like prime for genuine.
I think because the way that the original movie played out, where Brandon Lee got hurt or he died on set, like during the filming.
It's
and
tragic,
everything.
and
then it's like, well, and the movie's great on its own. So people are like, they don't touch it, leave it alone, which I totally understand. But it's also one of those stories too where it's so impactful, and I can see it being remade again. Because I remember, I think I told you this too, where how it was Jason Momoa,
right? Which
he
is
was
why you
so
see all
eager.
Those AI artworks of him as the Crow.
Because he was so eager and like very passionate about the Crow that he wanted to do it until like another studio bought it from him that he was trying to create, and then they got somebody else to do it all. So.
Yeah, and then we ended up with this.
Yes.
By Rupert Sanders, by the way. We didn't address who directed this.
Oh, Rupert Sanders. Let's talk about him.
He's got one of the most interesting filmographies.
Wait, let me get him. Let me get him.
Go grab him.
Go grab him. Bring him in, boys.
Let's talk about...
Let's not his face. Very deep blue eyes.
Are you trying to roast him?
He is British. You know what that means,
That's
guys.
all you gotta... Cut it off right there. Dude, he's British. That's all you need to know.
No. My bad.
So... He's only made like a couple things, I guess, but
Daniel loves Ghost in the Shell, live action.
I love the anime a lot, and I actually think the movie is okay. I'm sorry, guys, I enjoyed it.
I've seen Snow White and the Huntsman,
which I don't really. I didn't. It was okay. I didn't like that movie. And
I don't know. It was okay. The only thing I know about Snow White and the Huntsman is because Kristen Bell and Rupert Sanders had an affair, and what is it?
Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart. I'm so upset with her, even though I think she's a great actress.
You're trying to slander the one from The Good Place.
I have no opinions about her too. I think I like Kristen Stewart more, to be honest.
I mean, I would never compare these.
But I love Twilight, so the movies. Yeah, I read the books. But she had an affair with Rupert Sanders, even though she was with Robert Pattinson during the time, and that's why the relationship ended.
That's tragic.
And that's why that's the main thing I know about this movie, even though it had nothing to do with the movie.
And you've seen the movie.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't remember a single thing about that. There's like a sequel, I think. But
me when I do my deep YouTube dive, where I'm like, what drama?
Where it's like an affair?
An affair? A couple I've never met before?
That's every like celebrity drama thing though. You're like Brad
so
Pitt. How could you?
How could you do that to Jennifer Aniston?
I mean, they have better chemistry anyway with Angelina Jolie. But that's
neither.
That's
why?
Neither
now look at them.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know.
So going back to this, we left off with the idea of the whole bridge thing.
Yes.
The reason why I call it hot topic dialogue is because I feel like this movie has that sort of aesthetic where it's. I shop at Hot Topic. I mean, like I get, I get like superhero shirts from there.
Yeah, or like those superhero dildos.
Yeah, that's Spencer's. They're talking about the people that Spencer's too, though. They're talking about the people that are there for like the fishnet, like, and then the. Yeah.
See, I did not. I know they were trying to go for that, but the only person that gave me that vibe was just Eric.
Yeah, because I mean, I hate his V-necks in them. By the way, they're like this low. And
me and him going out to the club, just straight down like this.
It's like a triple V-neck or something. I thought I know that...
I did not like his style.
I didn't like his style either. And
none of it.
We're picking apart this character because he's like a fucking moron.
But he was in, like... It sucks like halfway... Once the movie starts with him as the Crow... Yeah. It just didn't get better. And the very beginning, when he starts realizing what he was capable of doing, what type of powers he had, like whenever he got vanished into like that world... Yeah. That like portal world... Yeah. I liked that too. That was pretty cool. But
you like the world?
I didn't like that homeless guy that was like telling him like you are the Crow. Basically, you are the Crow.
Dude, I didn't. He had to earn his crow.
Yeah,
like halfway through.
And I just didn't like that because it just felt like dialogue heavy. Yeah. and it didn't feel genuine.
Well, it was the most like exposition heavy thing ever, where he was like, "So, you know why you're here?" And then he's like, he literally goes, "Why am I here?" And
why am I here?
Yeah, he's like, "What is this place?
What's behind me?"
Yeah. And he's like, "I'm behind you." And he's like, "No, but you're in front of me." And then he walks 2 feet, and then he's like, "You are behind me." It's that type of shit, which can be done well. We've seen it done well. I know this idea of the paranormal and the supernatural and the between worlds, but can you think of a way to maybe visually execute it better? They're like in the middle of fucking like a bridge or something.
Yeah, like in a building.
No, and the guy literally goes, "Think it'd be more interesting, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do think it'd be more interesting." Did whoever did the story design and like whatever for this not think of a better visualization?
It's because when you compare this to the original too, even just the setting alone in the city looks so appealing, and you can understand and like feel where like the world is and like how the characters are, and in this movie it doesn't. It just feels like modern day.
No, I couldn't tell you. Maybe they do tell us what city this is in.
Yeah, but like it doesn't. It feels modern day. It just feels so modern-esque. Like it doesn't have its style.
Yeah, no, and things are supposed to have a sense of place, right?
Yes.
I'm supposed to feel like I know where I am. I never felt like I knew where I was in this. There was no sense of style. There was no sense, aside from the fact that this movie is washed out and gray as hell.
Yes.
There, like, I genuinely remember that. If you've seen the poster for this, where it looks like a CW poster, because it does, that movie looks like this.
I like The Flash season 1 and season 2.
I mean, I like Riverdale. So.
I've seen the first season of Riverdale.
Yeah, so
I don't know what happened with that show.
We all have our flaws and our positives, but. With that, though, I just didn't find any of the stuff, because we have to focus on Bill Skarsgård.
Yes.
Who is, I think, the epitome of what's wrong about this movie. Not him, not the performance himself, but the character that he has to play.
Yes.
Is so dull and so not interesting.
And like also, because like in the very beginning, once he becomes the Crow and he's so like scared and not taking like the chance of like becoming like who he is right away, and it didn't take him until like the last 10 or 15 minutes of the movie itself for it to be like, okay, I was given this second chance to do what I need to do. You would think that he would, but I think it's also the fact that we didn't really get to understand like how he became, or like where, or how he became to where he was that moment of the movie.
He's so hesitant for so long with what he's supposed to do,
and it feels like it just drags the movie along a lot more than necessary.
No, I fully agree. And this movie's, like I said, only an hour 50. I thought it was like 2 hours, but apparently it's not. And I genuinely, if you went in and you had to guess the runtime of something, I would have been like 2:15.
But like 2:15, yeah,
2:15, 2:20 for sure.
Yeah,
but no. Because I remember you saying this, what you told me about Alma, how we usually complain about the checks, but you were like, dude,
where's the check? Where's the check?
Like, I need to go.
I need to know there's 30 or 40 minutes left of this movie.
No, and I told you that I remember exactly when it was. A guy next to me, because I mean, I wasn't checked out, but it's one of those things where I was just kind of like, fuck, dude.
Anything can happen right now. I'll be more interested.
Yeah, the guy got up. I was like, oh, he's going to the bathroom. I wonder when he'll come back. It was during one of the many scenes.
Oh, damn, you ordered food, huh?
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, what was that person ordered down there? Even though there's no one in my row. But then that guy was the only other person in my row.
Yeah.
And then he came back, and then he was just like, I could tell that he wasn't liking it either, because he was like, and then the scene in which, it's funny, it's right before something happens in this movie. He left, and he did not come back. And it was right before his one friend that's bald is like, I only remember that because he was bald. That's why.
You just remember bald people?
No, because, dude, there's a line. Yeah, I do. There's people with hair, I forget.
Everyone has it.
There's a line, not bald people. There's a line where his friend is like, whenever he's like, I'm gonna need a gun, and he goes, you're also gonna need these, and he hands him bullets. I'm like, oh, duh.
Like, I don't know. It just, I did not. I forgot about that scene.
It's like, dude, what is he gonna do without them? Like, I don't know if they're trying to recreate John Wick. I'm like, oh, he was in John Wick 4. But I like...
Oh, Bill
Skarsgård, yeah. The bald Skarsgård.
Bald Skarsgård.
But then the action happens, and I'm going to tell you a concept I liked in this movie. It was whenever they fully explain what his powers are, the regeneration, but the fact that it hurts.
Yes, I did like that.
And they show it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I was like, that's a cool idea. And whenever that escalates into that action scene in the car when they throw him out, and they throw him like on the side of the road and nobody gives a fuck and they keep going. That's like a detail about the city I like. Because clearly bad shit happens there all the time if no one cares, right?
Yes.
But that's one of the few like details we're given about the city in which they live. And I guess going into this, because I would say now we're like sort of in the middle of the movie, right?
Yes.
With the action, when it finally happens, did you like any of it?
I didn't dislike it. I guess I would like it. I do like it.
Yeah.
Because it was like moments where I'm like, okay, cool, I can pay attention. But once it was over, I was like, oh, great, here we go.
Yeah.
When they were just talking.
No, once they start talking, you're like, dude, can you maybe...
So generic villain talk, like...
I hate villains like this that are like... Also, the way they start doing this format where they start texting all their information, where I was like, people don't like text like this. Whenever it's like, we fucked up.
We fucked up, we killed them.
2 hours.
Head over.
Yeah. You up.
You up. Come over. I was like, what? What type of villain? I was like, this villain sucks.
I'm like, you're also really bad at typing.
Yeah.
Dude, this is...
2 hours later?
Was it the woman that was like, murdered them? And then like...
No, it was the guy. Oh, whenever, what was it? Eric he shows up at his friend's place.
Yeah.
And he gets shot up and like with a shotgun, and he gets back
from
the bathtub.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I like that, except for whenever... Is that when... No, it's later. Whenever he's like, your love was impure or whatever.
Oh, no, that was the later.
That's later, yeah okay.
No, that was during the bathtub scene. Like, it was like,
Because he gets stuck again there. Every time they were like, let's revisit the hell place, I was like, no, I don't want to go back there. And not because it's scary, but because it's boring.
It was so boring.
Like, if they were trying to visualize this idea of the between worlds or hell as this idea of being scary, it wasn't. Unless your idea of scary is being, like, really, really bored by having to go through the same cycle over and over. But... leading into that, I did think some of the choreography was all right. I thought that some of the...
Like in the opera scene?
We're going to get to it. But I thought that first one, because even if you marketed this as action, crime, whatever, romance, there's like 2 action scenes.
2 main action scenes that happen.
And if we're talking about the last one's bad, but we'll get to it. And it's just so weird because the setup here is so nothing. Because earlier on you said that you felt like the... way in which they died was so fast. There's a version in which that works, I think, where she's taken away and he's taken away, and it's like out of nowhere, it's out of the blue, it's violent, and it's hard to sit through, but we don't get to see that. We get to see this version where they both just kind of die, and I was like, if the movie ended here, I wouldn't care. I don't feel any investment.
Yes, like you don't, I don't know, it's just like their relationship didn't blossom slowly, or you just didn't see like the connection that they had with one another. And
I don't know if it's because they didn't have chemistry or because if like it was a dialogue, because neither of these people are bad actors. We know that. They're not great in this, but they don't get to actually really do anything that would show that they are. As a matter of fact, I think that there's some lines in this that Bill Skarsgård cannot save because the way in which he delivers them, I'm like, this guy is such a fucking loser. Like, I just kept thinking it over and over.
It was just like either it was like a crybaby or like a wimp.
No,
at some points.
All the time.
Yeah.
And, like, I like seeing character growth, right?
Yes.
To fully get invested in them.
Yeah, and it wasn't until like later on, like during the opera. I guess whenever he gets back from the bathtub and he was given a second chance by the homeless guy.
No, and then he's like, what does he say? My soul for hers.
Yeah. And I wish that scene worked more for me because I was like, that's a cool thing to say. Yeah. And like it could be very impactful, but it just doesn't work.
It's so weird because
maybe I think also it's like maybe like during the whole time where he would be fighting these like the villains and everything, like the gangs and all, that they could have like cut in like flashback scenes of their relationship, and they just would have grown longer throughout the movie.
And then like finally get one full longer one. Yeah. Maybe that like there's a version of this, but then that's kind of like the original, right? That's paced that way. So I can see where they'd want to structure it to be different enough that they're not just copying the structure of that. However, It sucks because I feel like this is one of those situations where this movie, if you said out loud the premise, you'd be like, that sounds like a good movie. I feel like if you said genuinely what we said earlier, let's take The Crow, let's show the romance in the first half of this movie and make it that really is a version where I see that this movie's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
Where it's dedicated to that. And then the second half is this sort of vengeance thing. And I know the original's not that. But in this take it is. So let's just say that it's still like that. Where he learns that his character development is that I feel like he should be so much more justified. If he loved this girl so much, he wouldn't be such a fucking like wimp for so much of it.
Yeah, I think because the reason why I love the original one too, and like I'm pretty sure others as well.
Yeah.
Because there are action sequences in the original, but what made that movie so impactful, from what I remember too, was the way he would describe the love that he had, like with his partner.
Yeah.
With his girlfriend during the movie. And like you can see like how like they talk about like the pure love and like how much you love it and like the reason why he's willing to keep going this far like to seek revenge and everything. And you didn't really get that with this movie. And so anytime like it would just happen and then he would just like freak out. Yeah. And he would never explain like why he's freaking out so much too.
Yeah, he would just start panicking
and then he would still end up killing but panicking and you're like, I don't care.
I like the couple of times where he's justified in that, where his bones are breaking, or there's one visual I do remember in this movie, and it's whenever he has to pop his entire leg back into place. Yeah, that's cool. I'll remember that because it was cool. Because I was just like, there's a way in which you can integrate this more, though. I'm not trying to look for just gore. This movie is violent when it remembers that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think some of that's interesting. It's just, it's so preoccupied with this kind of like caught up in itself ishness of trying to be edgy, which is not something that I thought that was like a thing of the past. I thought that as much as bad taste aside saying this, I don't mind the first Suicide Squad movie. I don't think it's horrible.
Oh, the first Suicide Squad?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I don't think it's like great or anything, but that also has people compared that to Hot Topic that does have still a big chokehold on it with the like the daddy's little girl thing.
Yeah.
This feels back in that realm, right? Where you're kind of thinking of, like, I bet anything at the mall right now, there's a poster for this on a window, and it has, like, merch, and maybe it has his coat that he had to earn for some reason. In this
Goon?
Movie. Okay. I want to talk about that, actually.
Okay.
The reason why I want to address that is because I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
And I think whoever wrote this is aware of what Gen Z is. Because they even have something about aura in this movie.
Oh, aura?
Yeah, where he says that to her. Where he's like, you have an aura about you. And I was like, dude, come on.
Yo, let's go. 10,000 points.
No, and I was like, are you trying to earn points with like 14-year-olds?
Dude, aura thing is so funny.
Because it's fine.
Dude, it's so funny.
But he literally, like, he even applies that to this. Where he's like, you have an aura about you. And then I don't know what she says. Nothing, really.
Yeah.
Because their introductory scene, I know this is, like, way back further in our review. But it was another thing that I was like, oh, okay. It was a telltale sign of the dialogue being bad in this. Yeah. Is when he's like, what's the first thing you liked about me? And she goes, because of how damaged or broken you were or whatever.
Yeah, and you're like, why would you want that?
And I was like, I was like, also, what? I know that she's probably like, I'm broken too because I was mind controlled to kill a guy, so now I carry this weight around forever.
It's like, weren't you like a famous pianist or something?
Oh yeah, I did not catch that detail.
Dude, remember? Yeah,
like, because they were like,
the mom was like, you sold your daughter to me. And you're like, wait, what?
No, she was like, she's with this crowd of people, and then whenever they cut to the mom, I was like, what?
Yeah,
there's no real like artsy sort of us trying to figure this out. It's just poorly written, and I'm like. I remember thinking, is she so good at music because she's FKA Twigs? Like, is that what's happening here? And I was like, I've heard some of her music. I mean, it's good, but
I haven't heard any of her music.
I did because I like, she has one really good album.
Oh.
And I mean, I know she made more after. I've only listened to that one, so don't misconstrue me on that.
Nah, I don't know. She only made one good song.
So let's get into like the final third of this movie here, Erwin, because we've been talking about this way more than I anticipated we would be. So let's get into, I think, what everybody says is the best part of this movie, once he gets his second chance at life,
Yes.
and it's whole thing where he's finally acting like the character we're supposed to be following. Although, did you believe the character arc or care or like it?
No, not at all. I was like, cool, action again.
No, we're not two people that are like brained in the way of us being like, we need action, right? We're not people like that.
Yeah, it was not me when I was like 11 or 12.
Yeah, whenever you're like, The Dark Knight Rises didn't have enough action in it.
Yeah.
I remember that was one of our pivotal conversations. And
Yeah.
you told me you saw the movie Lincoln and it changed your life or something.
I haven't seen Lincoln.
What?
I haven't seen Lincoln.
You told me you did.
I haven't seen Lincoln.
Okay, I made that up.
Damn, you were ready to make up a whole story about me?
No, I would never make up anything about you. I genuinely remember this being
Look
true.
at me when you're saying all this stuff.
I would never make up anything about you, despite the fact that I do know that you love the 2024 reboot of The Crow.
As I'm trashing it throughout this entire video, yes.
This is a cover-up. He doesn't want to admit it as much as he likes it. Everything.
All right, so the opera scene happens. That's it.
Negative is a positive. So, what'd you think of it?
I mean, the action was cool. It was cool. I didn't like the way it was edited from the action sequences with the opera.
Yeah.
Because it feels very
Oh,
because
that's
it felt
what you
high
meant.
and low, like high and
Yeah.
low. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, why didn't you just have like a continuous take? Not even just a continuous take on the action sequences, but just focus on the action sequence first, and not us going back and forth with the opera scene too.
Yeah. So, this scene is hilariously long. It goes on for a really long time. And the action, I'll say this. If I'm going to say anything is really cool in this movie, it's this part.
Yes.
And it actually has a great payoff where he says, like later on, they're like, you don't feel anything. And then he goes, I feel everything.
That was
like,
pretty
I feel
cool.
it all. I'm like,
That was cool.
finally, something cool that I
Yeah.
can take away from this. Because now, when I YouTube clip the opera scene in this, I'll remember
4K Ultra HD.
Exactly. 2160p. And then I have to pay for the bitrate thing, whatever.
Parentheses.
And
The
then
Crow,
and then everybody in the
2021.
comments was like, underrated. Like, not really. This part's really cool. I do actually agree with you on that. I know what they're doing, but it's really funny that they can't nail it.
No, it was because it just reminded me of other movies. How they
Yeah.
were like, how they just had to have like both different scenes happening at once.
Yeah.
And it just did not execute it well.
No, because it's supposed to be that thing that's the contrast
Yes.
where it's like the comedic irony, the dramatic irony, whatever
Yes.
you want to call it. It's a filmmaking term, it's an English term, and here they're using it to be like, ooh, it's underscored with the idea of the opera, and then like the idea that whenever they escalate too. However, they're not really able to match the rhythm here.
No.
So to me, it felt like every time the opera stuff came in, it interjected. It felt like it was cut from something else, and they just sort of dropped it there.
Yeah.
Because the movie itself has no editing rhythm in the first place. So then it translates into a really kind of funny, botched action scene where everything that is the actual action itself, I'll say something's great in this movie. It's that. I think that the sort of absolute insane over-the-topness of it is really well done. The actual, I'm not like someone that tries to look for gore all the time, but the mixture of finally the horror aspect mixed in with action, I was like, where is this movie? Where's this idea that was present for this one scene? And I think it looks really cool. I think he says something really goofy in it, but I don't remember what it was. But
All right, man. Let me see. Sometimes IMDb has like quotes.
the payoff of it was cool. And with this, though, did you think that... Because he finally gets his costume at this point. Did you like his design at all?
No. Why would I? No. It looked terrible. The makeup that he had, he looked like a clown.
I thought he was supposed to, but that's probably not what they're supposed to be going for.
No, it just did not look good whatsoever. How would you rate The Crow? 1 star.
Hey, don't spoil your,
No.
don't spoil your score.
IMDb asked me.
Don't spoil your score yet. But no, I fully agree with you. I hate the fact that he had to earn his coat or whatever. And going back to the Gen Z thing, why does his other jacket say goon on it? Like, I finally get to bring up gooning unprovoked, and they're like,
Unprovoked, dude.
or sorry, it is provoked. Usually there's no rhyme or reason to it, right, Erwin? But with this, it's under so many different genres. But here, Erwin.
Yes.
With this,
true love never dies.
Yeah, I mean the quote makes sense, I guess. But let's say if this leads into the final third, where I don't think he's ever even met Danny Houston.
This is his first time. Yes.
Yeah. But before we get into that, do you have any more positives to say about the one scene that I think?
No. Continue on. I have no more positives for this movie.
Okay, that's it for you. And moving into that, this is the final escalation. Yes. They meet, and then Danny Houston is just sort of nothing in this movie.
Yeah, he's just being himself as he plays the same like villain character in every single movie. It's just like whatever else he has, either powers or not. He just plays the same.
It's the same sort of like, he's not even maniacal. It's just very matter of fact. It's like, I'm going to kill you.
I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah. Literally just like that.
Yeah.
And then I think it's hilarious that the final act, he is in his bathrobe.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really weird detail. But this leads into the final third. Did you like the action scene where they finally confront each other and then they go back into the
freaking homeless guy's world?
Yeah.
Or
I don't think he owns the place. I think he's just kind of stuck there. I don't know what his deal was. Yeah.
No, I did not enjoy that whatsoever. It felt so anticlimactic.
And you were already not into it, right?
Yes. And I'm just like, what is happening? And then eventually, like, the crow himself, Eric, was just like, you're in this world now. And then, like, he was like, and then eventually the villain gets taken by the devil.
This movie,
or like demons,
whatever
or something.
the hell that was.
I don't know.
They never implied that anything supernatural existed beyond these two guys, and then
that happens.
These show up
because he gets pulled in, like the antagonist, through like the pond of water or something.
Borderlands ends the same way.
Yeah. Lionsgate.
Sorry, I just remembered. While you were saying that, I was like, hey,
wait a minute.
So, great year for them. Really, this ends, and then it ends really fucking abruptly.
Yes.
Like, it kind of ends out of nowhere. Where once he says something when he's like, I'll be down here forever, or I won't. It's like one of those things.
Yeah, because, like, was it, Shelly comes back.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, well, we can leave together. And he's like, no, we can't.
Yeah.
And it's like, you get to live your life, and I'll be here, and then maybe.
and then I don't know if they're trying to set up a sequel. What's he gonna do next? Like,
he's literally dead.
I mean, what's he gonna do next in the sense of they literally couldn't? This movie was made for, I think I looked it up and it said $80 million, maybe $50 million. It made 4. So
yeah, that's insane. That was one of them.
So yeah, I contributed $2 whole to this because we have the Alamo Pass, and yeah, overall, Erwin, this, even if our thoughts ended abruptly, so did this movie. So like, let's go ahead and get to our final thoughts. Here.
FK Twigs became a singer.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Shelly, the character, became a singer.
This is a
yeah, I guess to further on her career from her real life and into the movie.
I guess because the whole thing, idea of, that's what irritated me here is once I found out the motif of the graphic novel in the original movie where it's like love lives on. I was like, that's great. I was like, but then the way they do it here is not so great. So overall, repeating a little bit of what you thought, what'd you think?
Not good.
Not good.
Not a great movie.
Yeah.
I dislike this movie.
How much?
Like my score wise, or
no,
just,
not yet.
Then a lot. This much. When they ask how much do you love me? This much. I dislike this movie this much.
Is that big?
That big.
Wow.
It's kind of big, right?
It is really big. Man.
Whoa.
So,
what about you?
I didn't like this movie at all. I had like 2 positives. You heard them. I thought there were a lot of great concepts here that are I mean, here's the thing though. There's great concepts here already done in a better movie. Yeah. So you could just go ahead and watch that one.
Sure. I mean, honestly, I would love to see a remake.
Yeah.
No, probably give some time after this one.
Let's give it another 20 years.
20 years. But I would love to see another remake just because this is something that I'd love to see again, just because of the story itself.
It's so adaptable. Like, there's an idea there. And I know a lot of people are like, don't mess with the original. But the thing is, if they respect it and then they do a tribute to Brandon Lee here, I can see a world even in which this exact story, this exact take of it is around, and it works. But this movie is irritating in the sense of we know potential and execution. This is the worst kind of fumble where you just did not nail this at all. It doesn't work at all. Anytime you ever get a sense of a good concept, I don't know why you're looking at me like that. It just doesn't hit the mark at all. So I hated this movie in the sense of you a little bit more than I did because you had one positive. I had two.
I can't wait not to talk about this movie ever again.
I know. I told you, I was like, I have thought about this movie more than I'd ever really like to. Overall, Erwin, what's your score?
Half a star.
Half a star? That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, half a star. I don't ever want to see this movie again.
You don't ever want to think about this movie?
I don't want to think about this movie
again? I gave this a 1. I gave this 1 star. I guess I'm nicer than you. That's not very nice, though.
I do it again. Lionsgate needs to stop.
So, guys, can you please stop releasing things that are bad? People are hungry in the world. So
I am hungry, yes.
Thank you, guys.
Gluttony.
So much for listening and watching. What did you think of The Crow?
I already told you.
Not you.
Oh, okay.
What did they think of The Crow? Did you find that this movie was like offensive to you in terms of material? Did you?
Are you by chance?
I was about to say that. Are you by chance one of the people that did enjoy this movie?
They enjoyed the movie.
Anyway, guys.
That's
Erwin Trejo.
That's Daniel Parra.
Thank you so much for listening. Up next, we have... Oh, we're on a break the upcoming week. No, Blink Twice will have been out by now. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.